Hey, welcome to
Hey,
Unfiltered Unspoken. Hey, Elaine.
good morning.
Good morning. So, I want to bring to you Elaine Mendoza, where she's sitting in Mexico right now. So, Unfiltered Unspoken is doing its thing. Boom, 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 boom. So, Elaine is going to talk about the fight to heal from her life trauma, starting from childhood into adulthood. What I love about this is Elaine is still going through some traumas and the battle to overcome the traumas. So, this is going to be interesting episode. So we're gonna bring Elaine up, and she's gonna introduce herself, and then you know how it's gonna go. Sid is gonna bounce the first question. Hey, Lane.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for
Good
having
morning.
tea with me this morning.
Absolutely.
Well, everyone, my name is Elaine. You may know me from my TED Talk, The Power of Labels to Change Your Story. I talk a lot about equality, human rights, how we can beat racism and discrimination, but this is the first time that I talk about the story behind the stories. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to be as transparent with you tonight as I always am. So.
Well, Elaine, thank you for being on.
Mhm.
Um, let's start from let's start from the genesis here. So, towards in your childhood, what was your earliest kind of experience with trauma? What was your childhood like growing up? The experience, the environment, country, because you did tell us you were from Venezuela.
Yeah.
So, give us the rundown.
Sure, sure. Well, I'm the last of six children. And when I went to therapy for a long time, I discovered that being the last puts you in a very vulnerable position to be the scapegoat of the family. I'm the youngest, I'm the most vulnerable. So there, I had a difficult situation. But I guess overall, when I was a child, I grew up in Maryland in the suburbs, Montgomery County, and I had a very American childhood. But I did notice that the siblings were just kind of, I thought it was normal back then, but they would just kind of bully me a little bit the way you think your adult siblings should bully you. So you kind of pick up this pattern of, oh, it's just kids being kids, right? But the problem is that kids being kids eventually grow up, and the pattern didn't exactly change. So one of my earliest memories is I remember being 17 years old, and my parents used to travel to Venezuela and come back. And at that point, one of my siblings we were all living together in a place in Maryland. And I remember telling my parents, can you please not leave me alone with him? He's kind of violent and there's something wrong with him. I don't know what it is, but I think he needs help. And I remember telling my parents, having the courage to finally say something. And he was kind of had a little smirk, that little narcissistic smirk, like, I'm going to get away with this. And my dad said, well, don't provoke him and he won't hurt you. I don't blame my parents because I think my parents, it was probably a very challenging situation for them. I mean, we're both their kids. And I don't think my dad had the knowledge or the capability of dealing with the situation because he was also the golden child. He was a good student. My dad kind of took him under his wing. He was sort of just the golden kid. And it's important to say, I have three gay brothers. Why is this important to say? Because he was the straight one. So my dad kind of took him under his wing because he was probably, the straight son.
Mm,
and
that's
in
a
a,
twi-
and
that's
in
a twist.
Yeah, and in a Latino Catholic family, my parents weren't thrilled with the gay thing. They were just like, "Oh, what did we do wrong?" So yeah,
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So even the golden child needs help too. So it doesn't matter if it's the golden child, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think my dad was willing to overlook anything that he did, and eventually, this same brother graduated number two from his class from George Washington University. He was a smart man, and I don't know what happened in his life, but he never left home. He never found a job. He just stayed home. He didn't develop himself professionally. And staying home meant, your parents eventually pass away. And he eventually found a way to get himself on all the finances. And now that mom passed away 4 months ago, I got a letter about 3 weeks ago, and a lawyer saying that my brother had managed to get my mom to sign the house over to him in 2017 when my mom already had advanced dementia, which is not a valid legal document. I am aware of this because she had dementia. She had no idea what she was even signing, but he knew what he was doing. This
So,
was carefully planned.
so is there a way to fight that?
There is, but my mental health is more important than going through all that mess. So I don't need the money. I work for my money. I don't have to steal it. So
Yeah.
I don't have to steal it. I don't have to manipulate anybody. I make my own money. I've traveled the world and I haven't had to steal. So I'm not going to steal anything.
Well, the thing is, it brings transparency because there are a lot of issues, I mean, in all cultures financially when the parent dies or the manipulation. So it's good that you're bringing awareness to the topic and,
Yeah.
the issue as well.
Yes.
So I would assume, would your brother be the only sibling that picks on you during childhood?
Oh, no, there was it was sort of like a total narcissistic family circle where the reputation was more important than what was happening behind closed doors. So my dad was a lawyer and a judge in our country, so he was pretty well known in our city, very well respected by everyone. So we kind of had to keep appearances going. I noticed over the years that there were a lot of problems over the years. Like one sibling took all the money at one point out of my parents' account and bought himself a home somewhere. We still don't know where he lives. He never gives us the address. um, this is kind of a nervous giggle because it's the first time I talk about this, but there's been a lot of disasters over the years where siblings just kind of took what they needed or stole what they needed and then walked away and then pretended to be, the perfect family. So it was sort of like people took turns. Who do we pick on this month? So one period of time, one of my other siblings was the scapegoat because he basically created a disaster by stealing everything. And at that time, he basically got away with it. He got away with it. And then that sibling eventually went after me. Uh, he didn't like anything I did. It doesn't matter what I did. He didn't like it. So it became a case of triangulation. If I did something, then two of the siblings would be like, well, Elaine, you're doing this. And I was like, I'm taking mom on vacation. What's wrong with that? They would just pick on everything that I did. I remember taking mom on vacation on several cruises. And this one sibling would be like, that vacation is not really for her. It's for you. I'm like, yeah, it's for me too. It's for both of us. But it just felt like I couldn't do anything right. Whatever I did, they would pick on me for it, so.
Sounds like more jealousy than anything.
Yeah, that's what my therapist says, that they feel a sense of jealousy no matter what I do. It's wrong, And that sibling, when I published my second book last March, he went all over social media to slander my name. And he said, don't buy her book. I'm the narcissist. I'm the only one who is showing any kind of empathy, but I was the narcissist apparently. And I remember talking to my therapist about it. And I said, my book is coming out and I've worked 7 years on it. And now my family's trying to ruin my reputation online so people don't buy it. And my therapist is like, have you ever confronted this brother? And I said, well, not really. I don't even know why he doesn't like me. I don't know what I've done to him, And she said, well, you need to confront him because you need to put a stop to this. So I took a screenshot of his social media calling me a narcissist. And for the first time ever, I said, this is a sibling who stole all of my parents' money. But for some reason, he's after me now that I'm a narcissist. And just so you know, this is what this looks like. This is narcissistic abuse. This is a perfect example I've lived with it my whole life. I felt like I was a bad person, but in reality, I realized that they are frustrated with their own actions, with their own things that they did in the past. So I told him, your frustration is not with me. You have to live with yourself and what you did to our parents. This frustration is against you yourself. So stop projecting it onto me and find yourself another scapegoat, because I refuse to play this role anymore. And I put that on social media. Tacky, super tacky. But it's the only way I could confront him, because he was trying to destroy my book. And I'm happy to say that on February 1st, it made number one in Amazon under LGBTQ memoirs, and it made number two under spirituality. So maybe the publicity wasn't so bad after all.
Absolutely, yeah. They have to eat those words.
Mhm.
Now, out of all of you, I mean, were there any of your siblings that you decent with, or that now that you are at least, in communication with on a regular level?
Yes, I was on communication with one of them. And he even said at the time, why do you come back to this family? You have talents, you're very talented. You should get out there and just not come back. Unfortunately, the more that things progressed, I think he noticed at some point, oh, wait a minute, I can't talk to Elaine. This isn't good for me. So he just got on the bandwagon. He's like, you shouldn't be writing about, you're just exposing the family's dirty laundry. And he just got on the bandwagon of saying that I was a troublemaker, that I'm a troublemaker just for standing up for myself, just for saying, you know what, I don't appreciate the way I'm being treated. As a matter of fact, I don't like the way mom is being treated when she has dementia. This is your mom too, this is our mom. Why am I the only one saying anything? I saw some terrible things when I went back as mom's illness progressed. And I was very disturbed by it, and I was very frustrated that I couldn't do anything. There's a feeling of impotence. Um, I even called Adult Protective Services around the beginning of mom's diagnosis, because I had a feeling she was going to be I had a feeling all of this was going to happen. She was going to be financially exploited. I had a feeling that my brother was going to find his way into her finances, and all of this actually happened. Adult Protective Services didn't do anything, because they even told me, look, we do believe you. The problem is that it's not likely that your mom will say that she's not okay. Especially, she'll protect her son too. So as soon as she says that, we can't do anything for you.
I just feel like if we can say that a legal document being signed by somebody with dementia isn't valid, then how can we say that her word is valid, that she's okay? You know what I mean? Like, that's just, I don't understand.
Honestly, the government, I felt like they were just trying to close the case as quickly as possible. It's just sort of, they didn't even want to deal with it. And it was very annoying for me to even go through all of that, because I'm like, well, I just wasted my time.
Exactly.
I just reported everything that's happening. I told him he doesn't work for a living. His brilliant idea was, after my dad passed away, and dad passed away 20 years ago, you have to realize that Venezuela back in the 70s and 80s, it was like little Saudi Arabia. Everyone was doing well. It's an oil country. My parents weren't hurting for money at that point. So my mom was a little bit of a princess. She never worked. She looked beautiful all the time. She was a 1960s housewife. So my brother comes up with this idea after dad passes away of opening a daycare. But here's the kicker. My mom had to work in it. Another family had to work in it. He just collected the check. He just collected the check. And he convinced the family that it was really good for my mom to get her working, because she needed to recover from losing my dad, that it was good to keep her busy. So what my narcissist brother did was convince everyone that this was okay. And I was like, wait a minute, why is mom working? Like, my dad would have never approved of this. And I believe that my dad was alive for 1 year to see this happen. And he asked my brother, please don't have my wife working for more than 2 years. Please don't have her doing this. Oh, because it's important to say around that time, my family lost everything. When Venezuela became a dictatorship, the government took everything. So there was a financial problem in my family for the first time. So this daycare was opened, but my brother did this because he was the manager. But he wasn't taking care of the babies. He didn't change the diapers. He didn't do anything. He would go to the gym and hang out with his friends and go to church on Sundays, of course. He's got to keep the appearances.
That's insane.
Real,
That is
yeah.
that is
But the family
completely.
accepts it as normal. That's insane. But what became more insane for me was how the rest of the family was like, okay. I'm like,
Just
am I
going
the
along with it.
okay?
Yeah,
Am
it's
am I
insane
the
to me that the somebody that graduated top of their class, like, the thing is, in a general sense, it's not even that the ideas that he imposed were bad. Like you obviously have a business person mind frame, but you also have that dark heart, it seems. So you
Con
just using
artist.
He's
skill
a
for
con
no
artist.
good. Yeah, you're just using
Con
that skill for no good. And you're sitting around the house being a bum, like, and where you could be rich off of just how you do things, like, and with no good intention. That's insane to me.
That's not his story, though. His story was, I'm taking care of my mother. The rest of the siblings aren't even doing anything for her. That was the story that was sold. So
Typically, that's how it goes.
that's how it goes. So what ended and I remember telling him, you're not a caregiver, you're a caretaker.
Hmm. Exactly.
So I remember around 2017. Now you have to realize that mom and I were really close, really close. I mean, whenever Mom's Day came around, I'm like, Mom, where do you want to go? I mean, we went to Jamaica and we went to Cayman Islands and Puerto Rico. I mean, I did make sure to spoil her because after I lost my dad, I felt like I didn't spend enough time with him. So I overcompensated with my mom. The crisis, the point of no return happened in 2017, which I recently found out was when he made mom sign a document leaving him the house. And you have to realize Montgomery County it's an expensive neighborhood. He's getting great real estate. I remember being at mom's house, and when you grow up in a narcissistic family, there's a lot of gossip that happens. Elaine said this or Elaine said that, and I'm being attacked, and I don't even know what's happening. So
Because you're the real person, you're not taking their trash. That's why.
yeah, I'm the one who's saying, why is mom still working? Oh, rewind before I tell that story. The inspector came by once, the ones who checks out for the daycare to see if everything's okay. Mom has dementia at this point. She is advancing to the point that she can no longer sign. She's forgotten how to write. So my brother's with her, and she has an iPad, and he's training her how to kind of quickly sign, like her initials or something. And he's like, "You're gonna do this, Mom. You're gonna do this on the iPad." And I just remember looking at this. I'm like, oh my God, this is my family. I was just like, this is my family. Like, this seems absolutely normal.
No, it seems illegal.
It's totally illegal. And I was just like, mom didn't know. My mom was just like, oh, okay, I'll do whatever. She's
I would have recorded him.
I didn't have, I guess, the malice at that time to realize what was happening. It was sort of hindsight is 2020, So I just remember thinking, why does my family go? Why am I the only one who says anything? Everyone else is just sort of like, yeah, well, we can't exactly lose the license for the daycare. She wasn't working it that much anymore because she had dementia, but there were other people working the daycare that were taking care of the kids. But at that point, it was fooling the inspector, and that's illegal. And I noticed that. But going back to the crises moment, which was 2017, he attacked me. And I said, if you touch me, I will call the police. So he attacked me. He put his hands on my face, and then he squeezed it as tight as he could. And this is what he says: I'm tired of you attacking me. This happens in front of my mom, my grandmother, my aunts. It happens in front of everyone. My story was they don't believe me because they haven't seen it. So for me, this moment was crucial because I'm like, look at who he is. This is who he is behind closed doors. I'm thinking, finally, you get to see who he is. But that's not what happened. What ended up happening was I called the police because he touched me. So I wait for the police to show up. I don't know where he hid himself. The police did not find him. But when the police gets there, one of my aunts says, whatever she tells you isn't true. And then the other person says, oh, let's make him some tea to calm his nerves. And then I remember, sorry, but I remember my mom who had dementia. Her mother instinct didn't disappear. So she's like, come with me, come upstairs. And then she closes the door. She puts me in her bedroom and she says, those people are down there. Well, those people, it's her son who just attacked me, you know? So she had some instinct to protect me. And after that, what ended up happening was my brother says, you're not allowed in the house anymore. You can't stay here. You know, I was trying to visit and see my mom because she was getting sick. And then the rest of the family went along with that. Yeah, you can't stay there. If my mom was okay, and if my mom didn't have dementia, this would have never happened. She would have never allowed this to happen. But he took advantage that she was getting sicker. Now I understand why he felt he could do that. He had just managed to get the house over to him, to himself. He felt like, this is my house. This is my house now. Yeah.
That is heartbreaking. That sucks. And especially since, you know, you were the one with an actual intention to care for her and, you know how she was doing and try to take care of her. I hate that so much. And I'm sorry you had to go through that for sure.
But you know, Sid, it's a lot of families, and this is good of the transparency that goes through this on the financial when it comes to anything financial or material, and they can take an advantage of someone. This is what happens real life within families.
Yes.
Yeah. And I realized that after I got the lawyers thing, I was like, no one's going to fight it. If I fight it, I'm the only one fighting it, because you have to realize everyone already got what they wanted. You know, my eldest brother got an apartment. My sister got some loans over the years. She never exactly paid back. One of my brothers already stole money in the past where he bought himself an apartment. So everyone kind of took what they needed when mom was still alive. Her jewelry went missing when she had dementia. And I remember her nice jewelry. I remember one of the siblings saying, well, she has dementia. She could have thrown it away or flushed it down the toilet. And I when I see something, I say something, you know, which did not make me very well liked. But I'm like, funny, because she only throws away the good jewelry. The bad one's still there. The bad stuff is still there.
Exactly.
So when I saw all of this go down, it was a combination of, wow, is this my family? It was the realization of, this is my family. Like, they're taking advantage that mom has dementia to do all this craziness. And the moment I would say something, I'm the troublemaker. I'm coming in, starting drama or starting arguments. And I wasn't starting arguments. I was just literally saying what was happening, facts. You know, and then they come back, they're like, oh, Elaine's lying. You know, the reputation again, the appearance. This isn't true. She believes these lies. And I was just like, wow, you don't feel shame for your behavior. You're worried about how it looks to others. You're mad that I'm actually talking about it. You're not ashamed of your behavior. You're upset that I'm talking about it.
Exactly. I think Sid had a question.
Go for it.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, no, not necessarily. I always come off the mic when I think it's going to be like dead spots in the conversation. But I just wanted to say, there's not a question, but I just wanted to say, I know in regards to like your mental health, I would never, I guess, advise pushing you into fighting for anything. But I also don't feel like it's would be you stealing. Based on everything that you've told us
Oh
in
yeah.
25 minutes, I feel like you are owed that, and tremendously. And above all else, I just feel like it don't belong in his hands. I don't care who it is in the hands of. It just should not be him. But in regards to keeping your peace, totally understand. But I feel like things will happen the way that they're supposed to, and natural causes will push him on out the way and get that to where it needs to be. Whatever is left after what's been squandered and messed over. But
Yeah.
you know
That's
I don't like that. I don't like that you would have to put so much time and effort into what you just righteously deserve.
yes. And I realized that I wouldn't be stealing. I know my parents. My parents had 6 children. They would have been like, here's the house divided by 6. Easy, easy peasy. But
That's why it's important to have a will. This
yes,
is very important. It's essential to have
yeah.
that will. Yeah.
So it's not stealing. Obviously, that's what my parents would have done. But I guess the point I was trying to make is that I didn't have to steal to create the life that I have. A lot of my siblings felt that that was the only way. It was sort of every man for himself. So I guess that's what I was trying to say. But you brought up an important point: squandered. I even wonder if there's any real estate left, because my brother, over the years, he's one of these people where typical narcissist, where he finances his business ideas. So anything from vitamins to health products, he would always find a way to finance his ideas. And I'm sure my mom's house has probably been refinanced more than once. So in reality, I would be fighting for like $130,000. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but at the same time, it's not like worth my peace of mind to fight for. After 6 kids, the house is probably worth $800,000 divided by 6. 130 a shot or something like that. Yeah.
And it depends on what he owes on it. But this is the
Mhm.
thing. If he owes, karma is something, boy, because I've seen people get houses and lose them because they can't pay property tax. They can't do this. They can't do that.
Oh,
So,
that's already happened in the family. His financial advice to my aunt and my sister. There's been 3 homes lost in the family already. You
wow.
know, because he's always trying to make the quick buck, but he doesn't do it correctly. So there's been some short sales. There's been some problems because he's always trying to get other people to work for him so he doesn't have to. So, of course, when my mom passed away, it looks like he was the only child caring for my mom. But it's important to say that he made it impossible, first of all, for me to stay there. And I live overseas now, so it's not cheap for me to just go to Washington D.C. and pay $300 a night for a hotel room. He made it hard. So he made himself the man of the house, so to speak. And it looks like to outsiders, like, oh, he took care of his mom. Of course he should get everything. He's the only one that cared.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna jump off your brother piece because it's a lot of hurt within you.
Mhm.
So we want the audience to see, like, what has this done to you? What are the traumas and damage that have been done to you through the process from childhood into adulthood, and you're still going through this. But the beautiful thing is you do have a therapist, which is
Mhm.
important to help
Yes,
guide you. But I
yes.
know the mental piece of it. And then I also was going to ask, are you in the LGBT
Yes,
community?
I am in the
Okay.
communities
Okay.
now.
Hey, Sid, we have another first on Unfiltered Unspoken. So this is the first time she's sharing her story, and this is no, actually, it's not the first. It's not the first. I take it back. First female. So
Uh,
yeah, yep, yep, yep.
mhm. Yes. So yeah, I was diagnosed with PTSD
Hmm.
a while back, and I was under the understanding that PTSD was for war veterans. I didn't realize that you could get PTSD off ongoing nonsense, basically. I mean, these are things I've lived from a young age. They're very it's your normal, though. When you grow up in in a family like this, you don't question it because it's all you know. So I tell people that I compare it to smelling a little bit of gas every day. You don't see it, you don't smell it, but it's there. So PTSD, after years of dealing with a family this chaotic, apparently I became hyper alert. I became my nervous system has is on survival, like what's going to happen next. So I had to learn to obviously end contact with my family, and I've spent time just kind of regulating my nervous system. And a lot of the nightmares have gone away, because that's another thing. When episodes happen, they stay in your mind for a while. It might have happened months ago or even years ago, but when you remember it, it's like it happened yesterday. It's like you're there again. And I didn't know either that that was PTSD. So I've had to find a way to regulate myself, my body, my nervous system. And even yesterday, I went to counseling yesterday, and she said to me um, that we need to realize that when people are narcissistic, when they cause this kind of abuse or manipulation, that it really has nothing to do with you. They treat everyone like this. They would have done this to anybody. You just happen to be in the line of fire. So when I realized, wait a minute, my brother didn't just treat me this way. He treated his own mom. He manipulated his own mom to get what he wanted. So I'm like, it's not about me. I think before I took it very personally because I was the youngest and it was easier to bully me around. But I realized, no, this is who he is. This is who these people are. Because I realized it's one thing for one person to cause damage. I don't understand everyone else being like, okay, okay, well, we see it too, but yeah, we're just not going to say anything. That I don't understand. The amount of support he managed to gather, and it's all out of self-interest. Everyone has a financial self-interest in that situation, you know.
I'm wondering, just in kind of like your therapy experience, if
Mhm,
you've discovered this,
mhm,
because it's amazing to me that it's almost like the household it's almost like a living ratio or living statistics. There's enough of you to actually
say
perform
something.
an
Actually say
experiment.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's crazy to me that you're really the only one with some sense, I would say, and didn't really, you might have issues of your own, but you didn't really go down that path
Mhm,
specifically. So was there something, for example, like if kids grow up with food insecurity, or
mhm,
parents locking refrigerators or cabinets, when they get older they might hide food for themselves, or things like that. So was there something in your parents upbringing or something like that? Because it doesn't seem, I know you guys went through money issues,
mhm.
but in a grand scheme of things, your parents were financially savvy. They were able to pick themselves
Yeah,
back up and
yeah,
at least know what to do to get back on track.
yeah.
So was it an issue of like them being stingy with what they have? Did you all not get what you asked for when you asked? Or like what I guess formulated things for them to feel like they should take from their parents rather than just being able to ask? Like, was there something in the upbringing that made it that way? Because it doesn't seem like you guys wanted for much, you know what I mean, if there were struggles. But it's like, it seems like your parents were very, generous, possibly,
They
and they
they
had what they need. So why did they feel like they had to steal? And how were you the only one to kind of make it out with without that frame of mind?
I've thought about that. I'm like, what happened? Like, I've thought about this. What happened to my family? Because my parents they put us all through college. They paid for college. They didn't even want us to be in debt. They were very generous. Um, the only thing that I can think of is there was an age difference. So my older siblings and me, there's a big age difference.
Mm-hmm.
And they grew up in Venezuela, whereas I didn't. I grew up more American. So my mentality was, I'm going to get a job when I turn 16, because I grew up in the US. That's what I wanted to do. And I remember when I got my first job, my dad was, my dad was a little bit on the, he was a little on the elite side. He's like, you don't need to work. It's like, why you got a job? You're in school. This is your job. I'm like, Dad, I want to get a car before I get to college. And because I knew that the boys were allowed to drive the car, but the girls, we had to find a way. My dad was the old school Latin American, good guy, but he was very old school in that sense. So the only way I can think of what went wrong is when we lost the money around 2000, around that time period. It was just sort of like, oh my God, what is left? So everyone started to panic and things started to go downhill. It was every man for himself at that point.
So it was like their trauma response.
It was a trauma response. And
Yeah.
I think that for me, at that point in time, I didn't even live in the DC area. I was living in New York City when all of this happened. I had a job. I paid for my rent. I had some rough months sometimes because, it happened and my parents would help out, but they would have done that for anyone, So, and if you watch my TED Talk as well, there were immigration issues with all of this chaos. There were immigration problems. We had to go through the naturalization process. So imagine growing up in a family like this, and then you have to deal with U.S. immigration, and you're like, what is happening now? What is this? Because people don't realize that you can be legal, you can stay legal in the country, and then when you go to apply, guess what? There is such thing as racism in our country. My application was rejected with 6 years of college, having grown up in the U.S. They rejected me, and the U.S. said, we've reviewed your case and we've determined you have insufficient reasons to remain in the United States. So all of this is going down during the same time period. I mean, I was on survival mode. I felt kind of abandoned by my family. And then there was an abandonment from my own country that I felt I was a part of, at least.
Wow. That's deep to be here for so long, go to school, you're Americanized now, and
Yeah.
then to be rejected. So did they ever overturn the rejection?
I had to reapply. And then there was a law that was passed that if what ended up happening at the time is I was married at one point, and my husband at the time kind of held that over me a little bit. And a law was passed that if you're in an unhappy marriage, because here's the thing, when you grow up in a chaotic family, you end up attracting chaotic people.
That's true.
The wound is there. So I'm recreating my family dynamics with other people. So a law was passed that if you're in a chaotic family or husband, where they're saying, hey, paperwork, that's mental abuse. That's considered mental abuse. So coincidentally, a law passed that I could self-petition and not have to remain in a toxic marriage. So I ended up doing that. And that's how I got my green card. Yeah.
Yay.
It was hell, and it took 7 years. So when I tell people that I became a U.S. citizen in 2012, and my family originally first arrived in America in 1980, well, next time you hear about immigration, realize that when you're legal and do things correctly, doesn't guarantee anything either.
It doesn't. And it's a world of money. It's enough money that the average American person doesn't have, to get all these processes done. So why people expect it to be done, to be here in this, what I call ghetto country, because we not even, we lack it so much. Like we think we are just the center of everything, and like people are strides beyond us outside of America, and it's insane how kind of closed-minded we are and how much we don't get to experience. But I have a question, only because I do know you said your mother only passed about 4 months ago. How was the whole COVID moment of time
Ooh.
with that situation. I'm sure it, probably was more hell on her being physically there, but being as though you were very close to her, on an emotional level, and you probably weren't allowed to be there. How did that work out for you?
It was hell on earth because I was living in Florida. I was kind of testing because I've been nomadic since 2015, but I was kind of testing to see if I could live in the US again. And I needed to answer that question for myself. I was living in Florida, and my roommate uh, got an anxiety attack, put it that way. And she said, "You have to leave. You have to leave. You can't live here because if you go out and you get COVID and then I get COVID." I was given 2 days to leave her house. So I remember saying, "Oh my God, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go?" And I'm in my car and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. My sister at the time says, "You can come stay with us." Now, me and my sister haven't had a wonderful relationship. She has her own issues with violence because you have to realize violence spreads. It becomes the normal way to react to things. So I ended up moving in with her, and I was kicked out maybe about 4 times in that time period. Whenever she had a meltdown, she's like, "You got to leave the house. You got to leave the house." She would do it to me. She would do it to her own son. I saw violence there too between her and my nephew. And I just remember saying, "Oh, why is this family so violent? It just spreads everywhere." And my hope was that it wouldn't spread to the next generation, that my nephew would not think that this is normal. So, unfortunately, there was a violent attack against me. At that point in time, it was October of 2020, and I was called a gay slur repeatedly, about 100 times, and um, yeah, I was assaulted. So at that point, I ended up buying a plane ticket. I'm like, I'm going to Mexico. I had already gotten my Portuguese residency at the time, and I said, I just can't go through this again. And I left, and I never looked back. And I tell people, I'm like, you see movies about homophobia and all these things, but I've never felt homophobia from outside my family. It happened in my family. And of course, I do forgive this person because I feel that they don't know better. They grew up around violence, so that's all they know as well. But I realized that I had to put the feelings aside and watch out for my mental health. And my sister saw this attack happen. So later on, she wrote me a letter and she said to me, "We are not responsible for any pain that we caused you."
The
Yeah.
nerve.
Yeah,
The nerve. It sounds like all of them need to go to therapy and get some
no,
professional help. I
I
mean,
agree. And
you're
I,
an example of what they should do.
yeah,
It's funny. I read a T-shirt once that said, "I'm in therapy because of people that should have been in therapy."
And it's
honestly,
true. It's true though.
it
It's
definitely
it's
is.
true.
And I just want to say, I find it absolutely. It would upset me, but it's just ironic. And when you get your citizenship and you can finally just breathe and not have to look over your shoulder about just being, just living, this is when you kind of just have to bounce around place to place. You're not comfortable. Now you're traveling to different countries. Now that you've found legs somewhere, you
Yeah.
have to just travel around to find your happiness. And granted, I know it's probably an amazing moment of self-discovery, but I just hate it so much that, you went through so much to find, stability, and to be legal. And then now you just kind of got a jet set, because of A, B, and C, and granted, I'm sure now it's at the, it's what you want to do, but it seemed like it was out of necessity at first. It was kind of, your last resort.
Yes.
That is just insane.
It was a bit out of necessity, and I am criticized for that too. They use that as an example of my lack of mental stability, And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm traveling the world because I work from home. I can make this happen. And
Absolutely.
it was also a part of my dream to travel, because while you're waiting for your American paperwork, um, you're not allowed to leave the country. I was kind of stuck here. I was stuck in the US, I meant. So for me to have that freedom to be able to leave and also experience what it's like in other countries, I'm like, what? You got health insurance, really? It's like, it's eye-opening.
Yeah, it's like you're actually probably mental for being okay with what's here and
Yeah.
not wanting something different. Like you're the net basket case,
I mean,
probably.
people in Spain, I mean, for example, give you Spain, they invented the siesta. They don't believe that work is the center of the universe. So they go home, they take a nap, and then they go back to work. I mean, they have quality of life. They work 6 hours a day, you know.
Do they
So
have a 5-day work period? I mean, a 4-day work schedule there?
they have a 5-day work schedule, but it's like sometimes it's like 9 to 3 or 7 to 1. The retail stores, I notice it's like 9 to 1, and then there's a siesta time where people go home, take a nap, have lunch with their family, and then they open the retail store again from 5 to 8 or 5 to 9.
I need to come to Spain.
I seen somebody on TikTok like visiting Spain, and they like literally they set time aside to eat. They literally like it's a almost country wide practice, and
Yeah.
there's you're supposed to feel things at different moments of time. The different points at which you eat means something. You start heavy and light, like it's just very thought out. It's I would love for the world just to stop so that we can, get to what's good and home and spend time with our family. I would love to, be encouraged to take a nap
Well,
before I go back to work.
they don't think so much about the money, so they'll close on a Sunday. They're like, no, we got to spend time with family. Yeah, we could make extra money, but who cares? They think about quality of life. They don't think about sales quotas and profits, and they
But
are
that's
very
important.
balanced. They are very balanced. So I chose Spain to live in, and I'm actually getting my residency worked out so I can move there permanently, which is going to happen very soon. I love traveling, but I've been doing it a long time, and now I just feel like I've been doing it off and on for eight years. So now I feel ready to settle in. But it
So do
took
you have to give up your green card to become a residency?
You have to get, yes, you have to get some paperwork done there. But here's the irony: I'm a Venezuelan citizen as well. So I'm a former colony of Spain. So there's an easier process for me because I traced my family tree back to Spain. I'm genetics going back 200 years. I'm Spanish, right? So there's a process for Latin Americans to become legal in Spain. So that's kind of ironic that that's the citizen that helps me out the most at this point.
Okay, so when we come to Spain, I'm calling you so we can get the real deal like tour.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful out there. It's Italy and Spain are my top two countries, but Spain is the easier immigration process, of course, for me.
Okay, so when I come to Spain, I'm calling you.
Okay, you can
I'm
please send me a message.
contacting you. Yeah, I am. I will. Yes.
I'm your translator. I will.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So nobody gets over on me.
Yeah. I'm good with vocabulary, but putting sentences together just I can make context, I can understand a little bit, but just speaking is just not it's not good for me. I probably sound crazy, but as long as I can kind of understand what's going on, I could ask where's the bathroom, what's to eat. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you want to go first?
No, I actually didn't know what to say. I just was trying to keep it going.
Okay. Now, I was going to say, is there any advice that you can give to the audience, positive advice on coping with the narcissistic family or, siblings, some things that have gotten you through, just, to help?
I think even though it's a long journey, because you first have to realize that you're in one. That's the first. You first have to realize.
Okay. So really quick before you answer that, a twofold. Can you give signs of narcissistic behavior in a family, and then maybe two or three things, and then advice on how to deal with a narcissistic.
Okay. Realize that a narcissist has a very overwhelming need to control. And it starts small. It starts small and then it escalates. Remember the example of the gas. The gas, you smell it a little bit every day. So, for example, 30 years ago, my brother wanted to control the temperature of the house, the air conditioning. He was in charge. He made himself in charge of that. And then things escalate. Over 30 years, people don't even realize that it's escalating, right? So look out for the feeling to control, the need to control everyone. That's a sign of a narcissist. Watch out for the need to manipulate everyone, not just to control, but to convince people that he should be in control, right? Because they recruit what they call in psychology the flying monkeys. There's the narcissist, the flying monkeys that support him. There's the scapegoat role, which unfortunately that's the role I got. So these are very textbook common roles. You know, you can tell, you can go to a therapist, they'll be like, we know this pattern very well, even though it's a different family. So watch out for that, the need to control. To heal, you should first realize that yes, what your body is telling you, what your nervous system is telling you, what your nightmares are telling you, this is all real. You know, they will gaslight you to death to try to change your perception. You know, they'll be like, that's not exactly what happened, you know, because they don't want you to notice what's really happening, because then you're opening Pandora's box, the can of worms. So I'm saying trust when your mental health starts to go downhill, you know, and ask yourself, is this me? Is this really me? Do I have mental health problems? Or am I really just surrounded by a chaotic mess, a chaotic narcissistic circle where everything's being projected onto you? So when you're the scapegoat, you're literally the trash can. They go there to project the mess on you. So you feel bad because you're taking that responsibility. You're taking that mess. And there were times that they would push me to rage, sort of like to be so upset by everything that was happening. Then they use your reaction against you. You know, they use that reaction like, look, she's the crazy one. She's acting crazy. But realize that anger is not there to show that you're unstable. Anger is there to push you and to tell you this isn't okay. What is happening is not okay. Trust your anger. Don't look at it as a negative energy. It's the energy that's going to push you forward. And it's the energy that's going to push you out of that mess. You have a right to be angry. You're being treated horribly. And you're just speaking up about it should not be cause for them to get upset. It's sort of like, how dare you be angry at us for treating you bad? I mean, the circle is never ending. The circle is never ending. And then they get upset because, you know, they don't want their reputations destroyed, or realize that these people are on the surface. There's a superficiality to it, right? And as the scapegoat, speaking about it is really a part of your healing. So I think this is a step for me today that I'm able to speak about it, and I was able to stay calm for the most part, you know, because this is still very triggering for me. But it took a long time to get here, to be able to talk about it like this.
Well, that's the goal, is to make you feel comfortable, to make it feel homey and organic, so you're comfortable with saying whatever you need to say. And you're not judged here, so we're not going to judge you. So, you know.
Yes. And realize that it's better to stand alone when you know you're in your truth than to be surrounded by the wrong people, because that is also used against you. They're like, well, you're the only one complaining, you know, you're the only one speaking up. So it makes you feel, and it makes you question your own sanity. You know, that's the purpose of gaslighting, is to make you question your own reality. But you lived it. This did happen. You saw it. You lived it. This happened, you know. So trust yourself. That's the best advice I can give. Learn to trust yourself, because you've been in a situation where you were taught to not trust yourself.
Now, before we kind of get to our kind of end game here, I just had a personal question. Just because, what type of job do you need to have where you can do what you need to do? Because that's yeah, we need to speak because I need my life.
And here's the biggest thing that people don't understand when you leave the US is that you don't need as much money as you do in the US. So, for example, when I lived in Washington, D.C., guess what? My parking space is $600 a month. My rent is 1,300, 1,400. You have to work so hard in America because the cost of living is so high in comparison to most of the world. I dare say most of the world. There are cities in Western Europe that are incredibly expensive. So when you work remotely, you have to get away from, oh, I got to make this amount of money. No, you don't have to make that much anymore. You don't live in the US. So now if you can make $2,000 to $3,000 a month online, you're golden. You can live pretty much 95% around the world. You can live, except cities like Paris and stuff, of course, are the exception because they're just like New York City. But if you can make between 2 and 3,000 a month online, you can live anywhere except
Can I buy a house in Spain?
a friend of mine, American, he bought himself an apartment for, I believe it was 30,000 euros. Of course, it was a fixer-upper. So he paid it in cash, got a loan, fixed it up, and now that property is a block and a half from the ocean. So, yeah.
But that's probably what, like 50,000, something a little under 50,000. I don't know the conversion exactly, but
It's
in
about
American dollars.
$60,000, yeah.
And a
Yeah,
condo here is you're not gonna find one under 3K.
yeah, a condo.
You won't. You won't. So people think I got rich. I'm like, no, I didn't get rich. I work, first of all. And secondly, I left Washington, D.C.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Well, Elaine, we are at the point, what we call our shameless plug. So you have a lot going on, a lot to take in, a lot to absorb, a lot of people can learn from you. So you see your banner going across the bottom here. Just give our viewers just some insight of where they can go to reach you, contact you, where they can go to purchase services, merchandise, anything that you got going on, products. This is where you just sell yourself. So now is your time.
No, that's my time. Well, one of the things that I realized that we don't go through things for no reason. All of our life experiences are there for a higher reason that we may not see at the time. So over the years, a part of my healing process was I've lived with Buddhist monks. I've trained myself and I've had their schedule. The last year I was in 2 different temples, and I realized that, oh my God, this happened because I can help other people that are going through this. And I realized that by default, I became a sort of expert in transitions because I've moved from one country to another and it's easy for me. Transitions are easy. So what does that mean? A breakup, a divorce, getting married. So now I've been mentoring people one-to-one. And people ask me, oh, you're a coach. I'm like, no, I'm not a coach. I'm a mentor. There's a difference. A coach will motivate you to do something. A mentor has been through it. So now I help people before they get engaged. Are they thinking about divorce? Are you thinking about moving to another country? And they talk to me about it. And I help them make the right decision for themselves. I don't give them the answer. I help them come up with the answer.
And then how can sorry, your shameless plugs, how people can reach, we have a scrolling at the bottom. Is there
Oh,
anything
yeah.
additional?
You,
Yeah.
you can find me on Instagram. I'm finally Elaine. You can find my website, finallyelaine.me. And of course, you can find me on Facebook as well. I'm Finally Elaine on Facebook is my business page. And you can find me there if you need my services.
It was an honor to have you, Elaine, and to be the first on the podcast, Unfiltered, Unspoken, got it first, and we're in Mexico.
I hope I didn't get too dark. I was just trying to speak from the heart.
No, you're fine. We want you to be yourself, and you were yourself, and we're glad that we made it comfortable for you to share. And a part of that anxiety is always talking. Like we get a little nervous, so it's like we don't know, like where to start, where to end, and
Mm,
that is exactly how I was in the beginning. Trust me, I was all over the place, but you did awesome. You did really good for this to be
uh,
your first podcast.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
my first podcast talking about this, and some
yeah.
things came out that I wasn't even going to say.
Well, good. Yes, that's good. That's good. Well, we want to thank you for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken. Your life experience is going to touch somebody. Um,
Mhm.
if you are going through narcissistic behaviors in your household, Elaine just gave you a big picture of some of the things that she was going through. But as we know, it's normalized. So when they're normalized behaviors, it benefits people. Folks gravitate towards the benefits. And as we know, when someone's going through stuff in family, and I know so many of y'all have been through this, financially, finances, getting what you think belongs to you, or taking control, or getting as much, and isolating people. That happens in family. They fight over finances all the time. So Elaine just gave you a wonderful an example how important it is to have a will. If you are alive and you have financial property, it is important to have a will. Elaine's mother was forced in the signature when she had dementia. So it has caused a lot of family rift all that trigger from childhood and into adulthood. But we admire Elaine because finances wasn't a priority, because she set her own life up individual, and it wasn't about what her parents left for her. So I commend you, Elaine, for not fighting over finances, because that is not typically what you see when someone passes away. And we want to let you know, give a shout out to your parents and our condolences. Your mom just recently passed 4 months ago, so you're in our heart from that. And hopefully you will go through your grieving process, because I know you're still going through trauma after the loss of your mom. And it's important because Elaine does have a therapist. So we recommend that if you are going through any traumas, to reach out to a therapist. And again, thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Unspoken. We are going to continue to share life experiences as much as we can. This is not going to end. So you stay tuned. Have a blessed day.